Alright, I know most people would be freaking out because I just put this all back together. But we're going to tear this thing apart because we're going to paint it. I would actually prefer just to use contact paper on this, but I already have paint that matches the school colors for my wife's school. So we're going to go ahead and do that because these will actually end up matching another project I did with another cheap drum set. When you're looking at these drums, you can see that the wrap is bubbling in certain spots. Not real drastic like a bubble, but there's some spots that it's coming up a little bit. Taking off the wrap in the long run might be a good thing. A lot of cheaper drum wraps have a staple that's holding in the wrap. You can just take a razor, get under that, and pull it out. I use a heat gun to melt the adhesive that holds the wrap together. That way you can easily use a razor, get up under it, and pull it off. I'm using painter's tape to make sure that the bearing edges are clear. That way when you put a head on it, it doesn't end up sticking to the head and ripping off paint when you change them. I'm using a flathead screwdriver to just get up under that vent hole and make sure I can pull out that washer. Alright, so today I'm going to use a razor to get the rest of the residue off of these drums. I'm sure there's a lot of people who would be very upset about that, but these aren't really high quality drums. I'm not worried about the tone being messed up or anything. And this is the quickest way to do it without getting a bunch of gooby gone and a bunch of random chemicals and products all over the place, or using a heat gun. I don't want to deal with that. So sanded these down last night. I have 2 coats of primer on it. I probably should do a 3rd coat. You can start to see some of those cracks starting to kind of fade away a little bit more. Fortunately for me, the color that I'm choosing is the school colors, and it's a dark green, so that kind of covers up a lot of those imperfections a little more than something really bright and vibrant. So I think I'm just going to leave it with the 2 coats, especially with the idea of saving money. I did 3 coats of paint and 2 coats of clear coat lacquer. Then I took painter's tape and reversed it and put it on the holes on the outside of the drum. Painting this outside created some bleed from the wind, so instead of leaving those little strips that would look naked, it's not common to paint the inside of a drum, but I thought it would add a cool element to the drum considering the heads are going to be clear and you can see through them. In years to come, you could have graduating percussionists take a head off and sign the inside of the drum, making sort of a legacy out of this drum set for the next generation. After removing the tape on the outside of the shell, I did 1 more clear coat of lacquer all the way around the shell. The more coats of paint you have, the harder it is to get that tape off, but it looks beautiful after you do it. I used the heat gun again to remove the wrap from the bass drum hoops. In a lot of cheaper drum sets, the inside of the hoops have some really loose soldering, and those little pieces may break off. You'll hear a lot of rattling happening in the bass drum hoop. Drill holes on the outside of the hoop, move the hoop around, and try to get those soldering pieces to come out. I really didn't want to scuff up these bass drum hoops, so I just sat down, watched some TV, and I used my fingers to slowly take off that adhesive. take these heads off and put them under the head so that no kid can sit there and rip them off or take them off. So let's try it. Alright, I really don't like the look of tape on a drum because nobody seems to respect a drum that has a bunch of tape all over, especially kids. But the nice thing about this kit being painted black on the inside, and also I put this in a spot where you barely see it. See it right here? It's right there. I taped it with black electrical tape. It's also going to be covered up by the bass drum pedal itself. So I think that'll help muffle some of that ringing that I'm trying to get rid of. The only thing left to do is to put some bass drum legs on it. Should be pretty simple to do, but my goal was to do this in the cheapest way possible, and that came down to using the same drum heads that were already on the set. I used some old beat up drum heads to make those little O-rings that I put inside the drum, and I have to say, for using $0 budget when it came to that part, it has a really good sound. It's going to save a lot of space in the band room. Honestly, it looks better than what they have right now. I'm really excited to see this thing played. I'm sure there's plenty of things out there you need that is right there within your grasp, and you just have to put a little elbow grease into it. You can always go to a shop class, go to somebody that you may know that can help you. There are always band parents out there who don't feel like they have any connection to the music program because maybe they never played an instrument in school, but they might be a dad who has a great woodworking shop and they could paint a drum for you, or they could do some big renovation like this, and then they would be able to look at that drum set and say, I did that for this program. And it gives them a sense of pride and gives them a sense of connection to your program, when before they just felt silly or out of place there because they just didn't know anything. They didn't feel like they could contribute. I encourage you, if this is something you don't feel like you can do, you might be able to find someone who can. And if you have all these old drums sitting around, which a lot of programs do something with them. Make something useful out of them. It's much better than sitting there collecting dust. As always, share this if this is something that was really helpful to you. And I really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much. Have a good one.